My name is Kelly Offner, as stated, and I'm going to tell you about a time before my current job. In about December, I left a company called United by Blue, where I organized waterway cleanups across the country. And organizing a dump site cleanup is a lot like being a crime scene investigator. You are furiously looking at maps and looking at your phone and looking out the window as you drive down random dirt roads in the middle of nowhere trying to find trash. And I look for tire tracks. Maybe someone pulled off and dumped some trash down here, or maybe my nose is leading me to the smell of trash. But in October of 2016, I was looking for tires, thousands of tires, in Kittanning, Pennsylvania, which is western PA, north of Pittsburgh. And in looking for the tires, I missed some of the breadcrumbs that lead to the end of my story. It was a shock to see signs peppered around the area that there was natural gas lines everywhere underneath of the ground. More interesting were all of the Trump 2016 signs that were on the lawn in pretty much every property that I passed looking for this dump site. So as you can imagine, I had a lot of assumptions about what I was headed into and who I'd be working with if we decided to clean the site. So fast forward, I'm at the end of the street that I tirelessly looked for after 5 hours of driving from Philly to get there. I walk up a long, narrow road and I hear the creek, and I don't see a creek. What I see is a nest of thousands of tires, about 15 feet high and at least 10 to 15 feet wide in this creek bed as far as my eye can see. And like any good CSI person, I grab my phone, I open up my video, and I start recording to get evidence. And then also, in case I disappear, at least maybe there's like a track record that someone can find me. And as I'm videoing intently, I hear this like snap of like twigs, and I look over, and there's this beautiful stag. It's right before the end of hunting season, and the stag is staring down into the creek, into the tires. And I thought, this is terrible. I feel responsible. And I say, I'm sorry to the deer. And of course it runs off because it's a deer. And I scared the shit out of it. But at that point, I decided I need to get back to my hotel room and figure out what I'm gonna do. So fast forward, I get in touch with the landowner, whose name I'm gonna leave out of this because I'm sure that they would want their name left out of it, who had purchased this property to save it from the person that was dumping on it for decades. The property belonged to his father before that, and they had been trying to work to get it cleaned up with the state agency, who will also leave unnamed, for over a decade, and unfortunately we're told the resources weren't available. So we seemed kind of like a last hope, and they had no reason to trust us. I was from Philly, I had a Philly accent. They were from Kittanning, Pennsylvania, and had come up in when coal and natural gas gave money to everyone in their town, and this was when Obama was still in office, and they felt like everything had been taken from them. So that's just kind of the backstory there. The landowner and I worked for the next month and a half to organize resources. I became a pseudo-construction project manager expert. I figured out what skid steers were, excavators, mini excavators, front loaders, everything that we needed to get these tires out of the creek bed. And then we aligned very interesting resources who I would never have thought we worked with. Churches, folks that were out of work from the coal and oil industries that wanted to come out and operate the machinery for free. Folks that wanted to come and haul all of the tires away. So we got to work in December of 2016, and in frozen conditions in the snow, we built fires to keep volunteers warm, and we worked for about 2 weeks to clean up over 9,000 tires from this creek bed. It was about 10 tractor trailers worth. Those tractor trailer drivers also donated their time. And it took a lot of grit. It took a lot of energy to get people on the same page and to bring people's awareness to a level where they weren't blaming and they were just deciding, we gotta do something about this. This creek happened to empty into the Susquehanna River, which is a major drinking water for folks that live in the Pittsburgh area, so that's important. The other thing was the landowner, whose children had grown up seeing tires in this creek since they were born, and who probably thought they were gonna be there when they died. And the landowner was extremely moved to have worked with someone who they didn't know and had no reason to respect, and we formed a lot of respect for one another. The landowner and I and their wife still keep in touch to this day, and they were just thrilled to be able to access resources that they've been told were unavailable to them for 10 years or more. I would say that the biggest takeaway for me in terms of saving us from ourselves is that we need to separate folks' ideas from their identities and see people as individuals. I was welcomed into these people's home as a guest, provided a warm meal and a warm bed, a room which incidentally also had deer heads mounted to the walls, so I felt kind of like I was, abandoning Bambi. And the other piece is that this work takes a lot of work. It takes grit and determination and getting people to work together, and that's the key to being able to save ourselves from ourselves.